course, this comes on the very sad news, that the Arcadia Group, Topshop, Burton, Dorothy Perkins and others closing down, and also Debenhams as well. Let's talk about this with Kate Hardcastle, who's a retail analyst. Good morning to you, Kate.
Good morning.
I mean, there has been a concern, hasn't there, that, with the closure of these big high street brands, that actually, our high streets are going to be absolutely devastated. I mean, that's the bad news today still, isn't it?
I think we've got to be very realistic when we look at the picture of our retail. Our retail is still happening, a lot of it online though, and that has been exacerbated by the situation where we've been in our homes, as you've described. A lot of non-essential retail's been closed. In England, suffering 2 lockdowns. That's been significant in terms of that shift. We've probably seen 5 years change in a matter of weeks and months. And what we've got to understand is, how can our retail, our traditional bricks and mortar, which still has value and worth, be heightened to a better level of retail, so that the people who do want to go out to shop still, and indeed those who feel they need to be encouraged, have a better offer there. There's going to be a period of change. Yeah. It's going to be painful because the retail, local authorities, everyone just isn't in the main ready for this, but the outcome, hopefully green shoots at the end. What the big plea today is, if anyone's not going to survive if we don't go back in numbers, it's the smaller retailers, and we need them. We need them.
Absolutely. I think it's actually really interesting how much people have tried to be shopping local and going to the smaller retailers to keep them afloat. Well, today we're told is Wild Wednesday. Lots of non-essential retailers fine. I shouldn't even use that phrase. They are essential, for them, for their livelihoods, for their jobs. They've been able to reopen. There are lots of really good deals available. In fact, I want to see some of the best deals available on the Debenhams website, if you can get onto it.
Well, there was a queue this morning from 7 o'clock. I've got to say that as always, I'm just about to hit the high streets now to see the realism of what's happening rather than just talking about it. Having a look through the Debenhams website. Listen up, perhaps don't panic into getting into that queue right now. I think it's generally all of the same items that have been on sale for many, many months, perhaps repackaged with the idea of the anticipation that perhaps there's going to be a bigger deal because of the very sad news. I think one thing is to be mindful of, if you are going into those stores, Debenhams, if we mentioned the Arcadia Group stores, please be mindful of the teams there. A lot of people trying to understand what a very bleak future for them is going to look like, and yet still having to operate in these times to try and keep the coffers coming in.
There's something to me, I mean, I understand the need to get a bargain, and I do understand a lot of people, again, really, tight on cash at the moment because they've been on furlough or losing the jobs, but there's stuff they need to buy, and they've been waiting to buy this stuff, and they want a bargain. I get that. There's something that was slightly unseemly almost about people going, oh good, the store's closing down, brilliant, I'll be able to get everything really cheap. I sort of feel like, well, if everyone had been ordering this stuff all these months, they probably wouldn't have gone under.
That's the irony, that the site, particularly Debenhams this morning, is flooded with visitors. But as I've said, I've had a look at, we do comparative prices. The pricing's not really that different. No. So they're going to buy it now when it was the same all the time. I mean, we saw this with BHS. We saw it with Woolworths. People absolutely emotional outpourings of the pick and mix counters and the lighting department in BHS. Sadly, if you don't use them, then you do lose them.
I'd like to point out, I can remember someone asking me when BHS went under, and they said, well, when was the last time you bought something from BHS? And I said, no, genuinely, a few months ago, I bought a dress, which it was like 25 quid. I wore it to a very posh party and was complimented on it. It's a really nice dress. I had actually, and I mean, to be honest, I only went in because I was killing time, but it was the only shop that was open on a Sunday morning. But that's the thing, isn't it? I mean, I have to say, Debenhams, Debenhams is one of my go-to department stores. Fantastic online stuff. They've got loads and loads of great outlets, and so you can get it all ordered in one. Really good delivery and returns policy. I would have thought they were the ones that they had actually got into the 21st century. They had done the whole online stuff. I thought that frankly they would survive, but again, we've got all these massive big department stores. We've seen this with House of Fraser and everybody else. Huge big sites, massive big stores, huge rents and huge overheads, and of course huge business rates as well, and a lot of that is what's pushing them under.
Yeah, it would be remiss of me to knock the work that's been done. It hasn't just been a case that these organisations were deaf and didn't understand that they couldn't transform themselves. There's been attempts, but it's a layered infrastructure with business. It's about speed to market, operations, how keen is your supply chain? What are the relationships like with the people you're buying in from? Have you been able to transform all your store network into something that's vibrant and energetic? I went on a very highbrow programme last night, and I was talking about about something simple as toilets. A lot of the big department stores were used and kind of a sympathy purchase because people want to nip in and use the loo. And that's absolutely warrant. But we've got to have sensible discussions about retail, Julie. You know, it drives me mad that people go, well, yes, you know, the summary of Arcadia Group apparently was that, well, they didn't transfer to online quickly enough. That's not the case. Yeah. They lost the pulse point of the consumer, and that's in everything. Speed of product, the design of product, the
are we going to see this anyway? I mean, the high street has changed massively in the past as well. It will change again. We've got even like with the supermarkets. You go from the small supermarkets to these massive big out of town places, and then we went to like the Tesco Metro and the mini Waitroses and all of that. Is it just that this is just going to naturally happen, and moving online and then moving to different forms? This is just natural, and we perhaps shouldn't mourn it quite so much. I mean, other than obviously for the job losses, the people affected immediately. But in terms of our high streets, will we just see them changing over the years?
Consumer habits, which are studied for like nearly 3 decades now, it's a wheel. It just goes round and round. And in the 60s and 70s, there was a revolt when shopping malls opened for the first time in the UK. You've got to see the headlines. I've been in the history books, fronts of newspapers. Retail will never survive. Your local butchers will die. It's not that we are not understanding that every time there's a job cut, that hurts the family and has a ricochet effect that goes on and on and on. It's just that this is business, and business works in ways. And the only reason I would make a plea about the independent use is because they actually help the infrastructure of our communities, and we're going to need our communities. You know, that money stays locally, and that's why I would always try and highlight that. Not because you should use them because they're charities, just because they help where you are.
Spend local where you are. Kate Hardcastle, really interesting to talk to you. Really interesting analysis there, retail analyst Kate Hardcastle.